Ladies and gentlemen, today, September 3, 2025 is a day. It's another day for the whole world. Yes, especially for the Western world, which is mixed. Here is Donald Trump himself, who is the leader of the greatest Western power. Mixed in his head, he made decisions pell-mell. We talked about this earlier after announcing last night that the regrouping of these three leaders. I didn't say anything. It wasn't a challenge. Then he made a U-turn. There, the head of diplomacy of the European Union came out Kadias Kalas. She made up her mind that the one who shows up is a threat. Afterwards, we saw Donald Trump, who took the initiative on himself that he will call in the coming days Vladimir Putin to talk about the situation in Ukraine. So Donald Trump is making his return to regulation of this conflict. And it is from there that Volodymyr Zelensky also comes out of his silence. He comes with his words after everything he has seen, everything he has heard, the semblance of an invitation from Vladimir Putin, because Putin told him, if you want to see me, come to Moscow, we will discuss. But discussing with Zelensky is a meaningful way out. This is the clarification that Vladimir Putin has added. Then Zelensky breaks his silence. Zelensky says he wants to convince Donald Trump to strengthen sanctions against Moscow. Zelensky is using the old rhetoric, the usual rhetoric of the West, and this rhetoric that made them continue to dream that sanctions can push Russia to capitulate. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as part of this video conference, it is, of course, this news that we will talk about. But before we continue, I humbly ask you to share the video conference in all possible groups. Put a lot of likes, and if this is your first time here, thank you very much for clicking subscribe. Subscribe, here you are. This allows you to no longer miss our video conferences. Subscribe. Let's go there in the depths. And so Zelensky moves on to another form of diplomatic offensive. He announces discussions with Donald Trump. Volodymyr Zelensky affirmed in a statement made public on September 3rd, 2025, he affirmed that he will soon have direct exchanges with Donald Trump. Soon there will be direct exchanges with Donald Trump. What will the central topic of the exchanges be about? The central theme? Will focus on strengthening sanctions against Russia. Russia must be sanctioned. We must strengthen sanctions against Russia. That is to say, it looks like the gentleman is sleeping on his feet. The multiple sanctions they took against Russia up to the 18th sanctions package, with additional American sanctions against the Russian Federation, this did not force Russia to capitulate. It never allowed Ukraine to win. What other strengthening is he talking about while Russia is the global South bloc has just traced the new path to definitively circumvent Western sanctions? How to ensure that Western sanctions are no longer effective on Russia, China, North Korea have decided with Indian President Narendra Modi. That was, I think, yesterday or the day before yesterday, at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting China. So Zelensky is playing his last card, it must be said, because seeking Washington's support to make the Kremlin bend through the economy is a waste of time. And even it is, from what the question is what Donald Trump is going to accept it, because go to the hour there, Donald Trump is getting on his nerves. If he does not do everything possible to put an end to this conflict, he will see himself as a failure. So Donald Trump takes his own initiatives and he follows his own path. So the strategy of sanctions, which is chosen as the lever for the action to be carried out as a priority to make the Kremlin bend, it is this strategy which is at the heart of the discussion that Zelensky will have with Donald Trump. So Zelensky repeats the classic Western line, We must asphyxiate the Russian economy, and this will lead to Moscow's capitulation. Moscow does not follow this logic. Moscow does not follow this logic. Not at all, then. And so, yet, after more than 2 years of massive sanctions, as they said, Russia has adapted, Russia has reoriented itself to Asia, the increase in domestic production, financial resilience. So to continue to rely on sanctions is to ignore Moscow's ability to transform coercion into force. Is that it? Moscow is taking advantage of these constraints, of this constraint. Moscow transforms this constraint into force. It's like a child that you push yourself to the end. This child will find another solution to help him. This is what Russia is experiencing. They sanctioned Russia so much that Russia has found other ways, even ones that help Russia grow. And so, as the sanctions fall, it pleases Russia because it will expand Russia's alliance domain with now loyal, worthy, and powerful allies. And so there is a balance of power behind the scenes. Donald Trump facing the Ukrainian request. What is the stance that Donald Trump will take in relation to this request, which is in progress? Zelensky hopes to convince Donald Trump, but President Donald Trump, he is rather. Instead, he opts for a direct dialogue with Putin. Donald Trump announced it a few days ago. He announced it again today. He's not for the sanction stuff there because for him, he knows very well. Donald Trump is a realist. He reads the news, the situation very well. Russian-Ukrainian relations, he knows that this cannot work. We must go to the path of diplomacy. So if Trump agrees to listen to Kiev, it will be more for the facade, just to change his strategy. Just a semblance, but from the bottom of my heart, he is not going to listen, accept, and submit to what Kiev wants him to do, since sanctions no longer serve any purpose. So it must be said that Russia is still at the center of the chessboard. Whether we shoot this way or that, Moscow can exploit this announcement to show Ukrainian feverishness, a Zelensky who begs Washington to toughen its tone. Moscow can only benefit from this because Ukraine is really weakened and Russia, on the contrary, displays confidence. Sanctions or not, it sets the military and diplomatic pace. That is what it is all about. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this was international news. Thank you for sharing it as much as possible. I'll be right back with some news. It was the voice of your only samurai.